Thank you all for coming. A few people kind of filtering in, let them come on in, and there'll probably be more to come, but thank you all for being here. So we're gathered to celebrate a very important person, Lea Grinberg. We're here to celebrate her accomplishments and contributions to the life, culture, science of the Memory and Aging Center. This is something we don't do very often, do we? Say goodbye to senior faculty. More like farewell, though. Well, yeah. So I wanted to provide a little bit of background. In 2009, I had taken over the neuropathology program a couple of years earlier and was trying to kind of cobble it together with spare parts and some duct tape. And then Bruce and I got an email quite out of the blue. You know, we hadn't been recruiting for a neuropathologist of any sort. And then here was this email from an MD PhD from Brazil with an extraordinary background, very deeply steeped in anatomical traditions, a special interest in selective vulnerability, happened to be interested in Alzheimer's disease, who had helped set up a major brain bank in Brazil. You couldn't have written, you know, a better fit for this position that didn't even exist than the person who came knocking, you know, that day. And Bruce and I just kind of looked at each other, and it seems like we probably ought to meet this person. And then we did, and learned a little bit more about Lea. And then we didn't have a position or any particular funding to do that. We were just like, this has to be done. This has to be done. This is the best decision we could have ever made. And I think the 16 years that followed Lea, you know, have been incredibly rich, grueling at times. The work we do isn't the kind you do during convenient hours or anything like that. But it's been a time of incredible partnership, collaboration. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you publicly and sincerely for all of the effort and good spirit, constructiveness, and care. Really, that's the thing I'll remember most. It's just how much you care about what you do. Thank you. So, you know, we're celebrating Lea today, and she's going to help us with that a little bit by reflecting, I guess, a little bit on her science and time at the MAC. And then I just want to make sure people know that immediately outside the lecture hall today, we have a reception. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to sort of say their well wishes and thank yous and goodbyes. Will be gathered out in front of the lecture hall after her presentation. And I've been looking forward to this day and also dreading it at the same time, and it's here. But it's just it's a great opportunity to celebrate your contributions. So thank you. Lea.
Well, thank you, Bill. I think it's very reciprocal, and the gratitude I had for you, for Bruce from day one, and everybody, you know, from the MAC from that day on, it's hard to put in words. It was a very a bittersweet decision to, go a little bit east. And I know it's not really a farewell because it will be difficult to get rid of me. We have so many ties together here, and even grants and deliverables that I don't think it's going to happen too much. I want to make sure this is being recorded because I promised my kids. It is great. Thank you. All right. So as I was, Bill suggested that I, make this farewell lecture, and I said, sure. And I started to work on this. It was such an interesting process. It took a long time. I started to look at pictures and to remember memories and to think, how can I fit everything that the Mac represents for me in such a short time? So, I try my best. I hope, I can share with you all my excitement about the Mac, but about all the excitement that this kind of support and nurturing environment that the Mac has been giving to me, but gives to everybody. It's such a special place. I've been to different places, and I think nothing compares to the Mac. And I think hopefully I can share some of this now. But this is disclosures, this is a CME, and I want to reflect a little bit about my journey and again, honoring all of us here and some insights of how I think research happens, which is much more than just having an idea. So we have to be a little bit of luck and also a little bit of support, more than a little bit. But I want to share with you a little bit about my childhood. So I always liked the brain. It was something, I don't know why, it came to my mind early on. And I also like computers. And my father is a computer scientist. And so he had a computer at home early on. And one day he came up with this game that was called Life and Death 2. Have you ever seen this? It's called The Brain. Yeah, I know. Maybe he really looked for it. But pretty much this game was like this. You had this screen here. So a patient will come and you do neurosurgery. You have to do a little bit of anesthesia also. And to do it, you have to read the instructions in English. And I didn't read in English at that time. So oftentimes, or 100% of the times, I will kill the patient and they will send us to the morgue. And this is the morgue. And it was always like this, is the people eating pizza and making some comments about the patient. So I think although I did it when I was 9, really represents a lot of my life because I like the brain, I go to the morgue, and anyway, so I like it very much. But, I came from this family that all my family kind of live in the same city as I did, like my grandparents and my parents. And the reason for this is because actually we were all refugees. My mother was not born in Brazil. So depending on the generation of the family, they came 2 or 3 generations ago. But I was the first granddaughter. And I think this was very important in this family, that really were excited to have kids again. My grandparents, all of them, they lost kids. And so, I had a lot of attention early on. And not only that, all these people here with this frame around, they are medical doctors or they became medical doctors, and including my grandmother. And actually in my family, there is this big tradition that women, they do have an education and they are, encouraged to have a career also. So I think it was important for me growing up. And indeed, I was very close to my grandparents. This is my paternal grandparents, and I was very close to them. And this is my grandfather in my medical school graduation. So he probably was happier than I was even. I mean, it was really a dream came true. And my grandmother, she knew I liked the brain, and she felt it was very important for me to learn different languages. I didn't want it very much. So he would bring books about the brain in English, and she will sit with me and read these books so I could learn some English. So probably the first really books I read in English was about the brain. I don't remember a word. I remember sitting there. It was very boring, but I value the sentiment and all the time she spent on this. And my maternal grandparents, they didn't have an education and they didn't even speak Portuguese. So we didn't have a language that I couldn't communicate with them very well. But one thing I remember about them, they work very hard until they dropped dead pretty much. But everything they did, they saved for us so the grandkids could have an education. So what was important for me growing up is that every time I felt tired or I felt it was not fair, or something like this, especially when I became a teenager, that these sentiments comes more often. I would look at my maternal grandparents and I would say, just shut up and, continue doing. And it was an important thing for me, despite the lack of communication. But anyway, I wanted to be a medical doctor early on. I didn't know you need to do an exam for this. So when I learned, it was kind of a journey to study for medical school. But I passed the exam and I went to this very huge medical school in São Paulo. São Paulo is my city. And these are the numbers, just to have an idea how mind-blowing it is. I mean, they did 27,000 surgeries per year, and, so many ER visits, and the students were really embedded on this. So during medical school, and this is me during my internship, we pretty much live at the hospital, right? 24/7. We had the opportunity really to poke our nose everywhere we wanted to. There is a lot of open doors, a lot of work also. But one thing that they didn't have was research. And the reason for this is because in this particular institution, they felt that every extra dollars they had, they should see another patient because there are so many people that don't have medical care. And I understand this. But even though, all these assistants kind of spirit there is a little bit of research there. And I won't have the time to explain here, but I was very lucky to end up, with a contact with Carmen Lúcia Penteado Lancelotti, who I want to acknowledge because she was really my first mentor. And Carmen is a neuropathologist, and at that time she was the chairwoman of pathology. And she liked to do some research, right, when she had some free time. And she was very kind to let me shadow her, not only for brain cuttings, but also to do some research. And Carmen was very influential for me because despite the fact that she was a chairwoman and she had all this busy life, she also had a family. And except for my family, at least in medical school, a lot of examples I had from women who became, senior clinicians or professors. They usually didn't have kids. They didn't go together. So it was almost like a choice you had to make. And even when I applied for residency, I remember for my class, you could not show, for instance, a wedding ring or engagement ring, because if you're a woman and you show up to the interview with something like this, for sure you wouldn't be accepted. It was really not something you could do together. And Carmen had a family, so I thought, well, maybe there is something different there. And we had this very great relationship. We still have. I show in this picture. This is from last year, so we are still doing things together. She invited me to cut a brain in her brain cutting, and I went there, and she said, "It works like that. I will show you a brain. We won't give you any history. You cut this brain, and you give us the diagnosis." And then I froze. I said, "Oh my God, I will embarrass myself so much here. How it will happen, right?" So luckily, it was something that was kind of obvious, and I could know what it was. It was not neurodegenerative disease. I will never know. It was hemorrhagic dengue. So, we could see, but I really was very afraid to embarrass myself. Anyway, so because, I felt I liked research so much and, I really want to continue with this, I made this decision that I need to move to a different place, which was, again, it was a very difficult decision because I love my medical school. So I ended up going to the State University in São Paulo, same city, very close by. But this is the largest hospital in São Paulo, and this is funded by the state. It's way bigger than where I was, despite the fact that where I was super big. But it does have research. Actually, is the institution in Brazil that most produce research. About 80% of PhD theses come from there. So it's very condensed in Brazil. And I went there for pathology. And one thing that was very nice, I like autopsy very much, maybe because of the game. But this is the university that holds the autopsy service in São Paulo that does from 15 to 1,000 autopsies per year, which is a lot. And again, a place that many people don't like autopsy, they wouldn't go there, but I like it. So, I did 170 full autopsies of my first year of residency. Such a good way to learn things, and I really enjoyed there. But anyway, I was about to finish my training in pathology, and I still like the brain. And despite the fact they have a lot of research there, they really didn't have research in neuropathology, which is still lacking in Brazil. So, I needed to get to a solution. And again, I want to highlight a few people that really change or pivot the way I see things. And this is Paulo Saldiva. He was the chairman of pathology there. He still is. And he told me, there is this faculty member who wants to become a chairman of geriatrics. And he opened this lab that's called aging pathology. And I remember this because I will pass at the corridor and we'll see this door called aging pathology. And I didn't know what it was. And he said, talk to him. Maybe he would be your mentor for this. So I talked to Wilson and he was very receptive. He said, oh, if Paulo sent you, I'm sure you are okay. And yes, I want to study aging, liver aging. I said, well, I don't think I will do liver. I really need to do brain. And, in a really gesture of being very trusting and encouraging, he said, okay, I don't understand anything about the brain, but we'll figure it out. I will help you and you can do your PhD on this. So this is how I started. So the idea was for my PhD, because we had all these autopsies in front of us, I could be able to examine the brain once I learned how to do it and be able to understand what is the threshold between normal aging and pathological brain aging. And we said, let's look at 1,000 brains. I mean, what is 1,000 brains, right? I said, sure. But one thing that both Wilson and Paulo, they did, it was super important. They told me, look, you're starting something that you don't know if it will work out or not. But if it starts to work out, first you have to make sure that you have people in the institution that will help you because you need. And you have to have people in the institution that won't be upset if you start to be successful and start to boycott your project. So they said, we'll make a list of people you invite to make advisory board so they will feel that they are participating. And if it works out, they won't be against you. And this was super important. And I'm repeating here because I think it's still very important. It's not necessarily because people are malignant or they want to go against you, but they are, competition for resources, for places, etc. And the best if we can do things together, and people like to be included, and they were really included. So, and they were super important. I mean, this board actually is still with us all the way. I mean, many of you know Ricardo Nitrini, he's a neurologist. Ana is a geneticist, Ben is a psychiatrist, Helena is also a psychiatrist, but she does bioinformatics, and Carlos Pasqualucci is the director of the autopsy service. And another thing they did, it was very important, they start to bring other people who were trying to do a PhD and they were interested in this area to really join forces so we could do it together. And Claudia Suemoto, that many of you know, and Renata Leite are still in the brain bank until today. They are directing the brain bank there. And this is one of the reasons we can continue despite the fact that I'm not in Brazil for 18 years living there. All right, so, it was very nice. We had all the support, advice, etc. Let's start doing that. But of course, there were some roadblocks in the way. And again, I'm sharing a little bit of this because I think you will start to understand better the things I do since we are sharing, but also I think it was a good thing. So first of all, we had no funding. We could not get funding from the funding agencies. First, because they didn't have a lot of funding. Second, because they didn't believe it was a good project and there was no one senior there that could really, vouch for this. So the solution for this was to talk to the press folks from the university, and they started to send press releases to the big newspapers in Brazil saying, oh, there is some people trying to do a brain bank. And they really they took the bait because, it's exciting to talk about brain bank. People like it. So we started to show up in newspapers. And every time we were in a newspaper, and this was usually, in the Sunday newspaper or in the main page, someone will call and say, I heard about you. I wanted to give you some money. So that was good. Little small money, but was good. Even private people or people saying, I have large research studies. I can give you gloves. I can give you, some small equipment, whatever you need that I can take from my research. And it was very important. We wouldn't have done without it. So, and after this, we started to have some results. And of course, the funding agencies then started to chip in. But before that, this was the thing that worked for us. The other thing, we didn't have any staff. I couldn't hire anyone, of course, because I didn't have money. And then again, my mentors told me, you should offer to people that don't study at this university, like they do biology or something like this, from private universities. Private universities in Brazil, they are considered more like second tier. And these students, they have to do some sort of practicum or internship. And, it's good for their CV if they do in a major university. So maybe you can announce that you have some positions and people will come. So I remember I announced, and I have a date for people to come, and 72 people showed up. So I didn't even know what to do with them, because what do you do with 72 people? So the first thing we did was to take them to the morgue, because half already gave up, and then we could deal with the others. But some of these people, and they are here, this is during my PhD defense, and this is a conference, they are still with us, and many of them did their PhDs, and some of them went to be faculty members in different universities, not only there, but really it started with this idea. Of course, I had zero experience how to do a brain bank. I didn't even want to do a brain bank. But then by accident, I met Rivka Ravitch, who was visiting Brazil, and she went to the university, and someone told her, there is someone working with brains. And Rivka was very instrumental because she founded the Netherlands Brain Bank, which is considered to be one of the highest class brain banks we have in the world. Everybody requests issue to them. And she came and she looked what I was doing, and it was completely wrong. And she said, maybe I can help you a little bit. And she did a lot. So it was super, super helpful. So now there is the most important thing. And this was very serendipitous. I will share this story because I still think it's funny and it comes out of the blue. So we were in a public institution, and it's very difficult to change anything in a public institution because we require a lot of changes in protocol and staff changing their ways. And they don't really want to do it. And there is no incentive because you cannot fire anyone in a public institution. So people try to do things and these things fail. So why I think we didn't fail? Because when I was a resident in pathology, I really like clinical, I really like internal medicine, and I wanted to continue to do internal medicine. I had a job in an emergency room and things like this. And there was a pilot project in Brazil that they were open a kind of different kind of specialization. It was a residency in the end, but because they were bringing acupuncture as a medical specialty and only medical doctors could do it. And I thought, well, I will try. I will see if I like it. At the end, I like it very much. And I ended up doing this course. Now, because I was doing pathology, part of the requirements of this course was that I have to see, I think it was 60 patients for a period of time, and document was the treatment that was going on and so forth. So the only place for me to do it was in the hospital where I was. So I started to tell the staff from the autopsy service, because I was there all the time, that I was taking this course and I needed people that would like to maybe be seen by me. And, the word started to spread. And at the end of the day, I had many more than 60 people coming to see me. People from the autopsy service, from pathology, from other departments, the janitors, I like it very much because I really like to see patients. So at the end of the day, when I wanted to do this project, and I had to ask people, especially the staff, that I needed help with certain things, they were there for me. They were absolutely there, and they did everything to make it happen, including gossip saying, oh, there is this director or this person here who really doesn't like our project, and they are trying to make it not work, and this is what you need to do. So again, very serendipitous. It happened before I even think about PhD, but it really saved our skin there. It's super important. And of course, I have no knowledge of aging pathology, so I went abroad. And I went also to other cities in Brazil, and I met many people who helped me by a ton, and we still have great relationship, which is great. And one of these trips, I went to St. Louis to get a fellowship. It was half pathology and half behavioral neurology with John Morris there at WashU. But when I got there, they had this new faculty member, Nigel Carnes, he's a pathologist, and I was supposed to work with him. And I really was hoping that Nigel will show me how to do diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, because I didn't know. But I got there and he said, I know you want to study Alzheimer's disease. It's kind of easy, but I have a better opportunity for you. I said, what? He said, well, I'm doing this review of frontotemporal over degeneration. We are trying to make a criteria, and maybe you can help me with this. And I said, thank you very much, but I really would like to do Alzheimer's disease. But said, no. He was very insistent. So it came to a point that I couldn't say no, right? I said, well, I'm here. What do I do? So at the end of the day, the time I was there, I reviewed 833 cases of FTLD from the WashU inventory. So with this, not only we could help to reclassify things, but we identify some clinical phenotypes that could have a FTLD pathology like AGD. Is rare, but it might happen. And because of this, of Nigel, when I wrote to Bruce and Bill, I could say, I know pathology of FTLD. I really knew pathology of FTLD, and I'm sure it helped with my email. And this was thanks to Nigel, because it was not in my mind at all. And I changed my PhD because I still don't know the threshold between normal aging and pathological aging. But, I did my PhD in FTLD. And I went to a postdoc, and then I wrote this email. Indeed, it was out of the blue, because I was trying to find a position here in the US so I could be closer to my fiancé, who is now my husband. And one thing I would like to share that was very important for me, I mean, when I came to talk to Bill, it was the next day I wrote the email. Bruce was not even here. It was something very strange happened. So have you ever seen this book in your life, The Atlas of Cerebral Architectonics of the Human Adult Cerebral Cortex? Have you ever heard about this book? Exactly. But Bill did. And this was my favorite book, because this is what I did on my postdoc, neuroanatomy, and really neuroanatomy linked to the structure of the brain. So imagine how, I was a little bit tense when I came here, how Bill put me at ease, not only because, there was this shared interest in FTLD, but there was this shared interest in von Economou cells, which I knew about. It probably not many people knew about it too, and cytoarchitectonics. So, from that day, the partnership really, continued to go very strong, because there is all this very many, share interests and, passions, and we could do this together. Anyway, so here is me at UCSF over 16 years. And, when I plot this kind of milestone, so to say, and I put, down some of the deliverables, I think, even for me, I say, wow, this is like very successful, right? I mean, this is everything that I accomplished here. But the point is, I could only do that, and I'm very sure about it, because the MEC is a very nurturing environment. I mean, there is no way I will do even 1/10 of it, even if I'm, be talented and so on, without the MEC. I mean, it's really a motor behind anyone that makes things happen. And this is from the year that I joined in 2009. And because of this nurturing environment, very quickly my lab grew. I mean, from Panos and Daisy, who joined me in 2011, 2012, to students that came. We already have Alex here in 2013, and and things go on, and continue to be a place where not only me but everybody in the lab could thrive and do very amazing science. So I wanted to share just two of these small ideas that I think it became kind of big impact because of the MEC, because we do things together here. So when I came, Bruce told me, what do you want to do about research? And I said, I don't know, what do you want me to do about research? I knew I will work on the brain bank part-time. And he said, you can do whatever you want. I said, wow, that's very generous. Then the next day, I also learned that I need to bring the funding for this, because this is a system I was not used to. I had no idea I would be in soft money here. So I was advised on my first month that I had to write grants. And it's okay. I think I adapt to this, but it was a shock. And I thought, well, what can I do here in terms of research, right? And I had recently, around that time, published this paper suggesting that tau pathology in Alzheimer's disease actually start in the brainstem. It was a very descriptive paper, but I said, okay, I like this idea of the brainstem. I mean, it combines what I like. How about if I propose to have a project that I will look at brainstem pathology in FTLD, TDP, and AD. And I will bring some of the techniques I learned on my postdocs. Everything will be okay. And Bruce said, okay, I will help you to find funding for the first year. Indeed, we had the French Foundation funding. And then you apply for an R01. And when I said I will apply for this R01, Bruce and Bill, maybe you told me, you said, well, a descriptive project probably won't fly. And for whatever reason, it did, right? So it will never happen again. I think it was meant to be. But the point is that I got this funding. I got my R1 on my second year here. I wrote it on my maternity leave. And I was so shocked. And I think I was not prepared because the fact is that I overpromised. And because I overpromised, I didn't have a lab, I didn't have the material, I didn't have anything. I spent the next 5 years of the R1, instead of producing science, trying to put a lab together and make these methods that I promised work. Right? We have things like this. This is celloidine that we use to embed the brain. So we need to use automatic computers to draw the borders. And it didn't work because it's transparent. So it took 3 years for us to figure it out that we could turn it blue without painting the tissue blue, because Panos went to Japan for doing whatever what, and this is what he learned there. You know, nothing could accommodate our big sample. So we went to a flower shop and got these flower vases to make things happen, and so forth. So at the end of my 5 years of this R1, I didn't have any scientific paper related to my R1. And it was a problem because, of course, I could not renew my R1. And, you know, I started to go in debt actually at UCSF because of this and because of other stuff. And then Bruce again came to save the day because he told me, you know what, Lea, you're working on brainstem is very interesting. And actually, there is Stone Island and Christine Walsh, and they have been working on sleep together with the Tau Consortium. So, you know, I think sleep has to do with the brainstem. Why don't you help them to see what's going on in these brains? I said, no, I don't think so. I don't understand. I said, I don't understand anything about sleep. I don't know what it is. And Bruce said, you know, I will get you a grant of $20,000 from the Tau Consortium, which he did. And with this $20,000, you try to do something. I said, okay, all right. So we did. Anyway, we did a lot. I won't spend too much time then. I can tell more about the stories. But indeed, Bruce was very right because sleep control has a lot to do with the brainstem, but more than this, especially the nuclei that keep us awake are the first affected in Alzheimer's disease in the studies that I started to do before. So because of this, and with Tom and Christine, I could pivot a little bit. I ended up publishing the papers from the first R1, but it really started to give a clinical meaning of the things I was trying to do. And by the way, I didn't continue with the FTO-DTDP because it really doesn't affect the brainstem too much. So this was kind of dead in the water. And the thing with the brainstem at the end, especially putting sleep, works so well that all these nice faces here, they have first author papers, sometimes more than one, in this topic. So see, it's amazing in few years how many people got involved and got papers on this. Gowon, who is working on the suprachiasmatic nucleus and in a new area for sleep. Abhijit is doing everything about the posterior hypothalamus. Shima work in something that no one could make before her, understand some sleep areas that are very difficult to find, the intermediate nucleus. Joseph wrote several papers. Now he's a neurosurgeon resident here at UCSF. Alex, I don't know how many papers we wrote together, many. The latest one on selective vulnerability in the locus coeruleus. Mihoville, who is a psychiatrist, and now he's the head of a geriatric psychiatry unit in Germany, made you know, many excellent designs for our studies that we use until now. Caroline helped us to do all the start of the molecular studies in the lab. Rana was the one who did the study with $20,000 that we could show that PSP and AD had a different vulnerability in the brainstem. Austin, our psychiatrist, worked with Alex in one of our first papers of locus coeruleus. And Nel Falgas, who came from GBHI, also wrote a lot of papers. And of course, Panos, who has been so instrumental in the lab. But nothing of this would have happened if Bill and Salvo and Outlook, when they come 3 in the morning, they remember to take parts of the brain that we need for this study. And, you know, they don't complain too much when I scoop the thalamus out because I need the brainstem. And we're super accommodating in everything I ask, which is not a little. You know, Bill told me this morning that he learned very early that the best way to help me to succeed is to be out of my way. It's true. which I think it captures well. Of course, Kamalini, Igor, who have been helping us, and all the staff support in the lab. I mean, all this work to develop these methods with Daisy, Maria, Dulce, and Song that were the technologists, Wenda, who manages everything, Laura, who coordinates my schedule and other things, Patin and Tia doing project management, of course, Alex and Ian that solve everything in the lab, Felipe, our bioinformatician, and Katrin, who is here also a postdoc now at Gladstone, who is amazing scientist, but also amazing artist. And all our drawings, including the one that I just showed, that is repeated everywhere. People from other groups use these slides. This is Katrin's work. So it's super important. Anyway, so the impact is that in 2009, you know, the brainstem was almost nothing. And sleep in Alzheimer's disease was known, associated with amyloid. And now in 2025, we have so many things. We have a peer group with people all over the world. Local cellular imaging is advancing as a biomarker for AD. Wake deficiency became something more primary in Alzheimer's disease. We understand better about PSP dysfunction, sleep, which was important. And we have a special issue now on Alzheimer's and dementia just about the neuromodulatory subcortical system. All right. Tom, Christine, and I, and Katrin, we wrote this paper now that was commissioned by the lungs neurologist. So a big change in a few years, and I think it's really much related to the MAC. I think I'm running a little bit late. I think I will have to skip this. But, you know, one of my honors at UCSF was to get this award with Dani Yoshishima. Dan is a computer scientist in the Lawrence Berkeley lab, and we met a few years ago through the MAC. And because of her, all my dreams that I had a long time ago but could never do, that really could have a 3D reconstruction of any kind of protein in the brain and put it together with the MRI and then with the PET scan to do correlations came through, because it really took, you know, the work of a lot of people. And papers are starting to come out, but already started to have an impact. Jonathan, of course, with Gil and Renaud, because we don't do anything of this without Gil and Renaud. They are getting better understanding of what is the off-target signal in PET, also working with Jonathan Duigu, Cindy Barton, because she's the one who got the patients for us. It was very difficult. We are trying to understand better, like ceiling effects on PET, because it does have an impact when you treat patients and you don't see changes in PET, so what's going on. Tia is doing validation of local cellular imaging, and Masa has been working a lot with some inflammatory synaptic markers also for PET. Now, this is the lab, but the MAC is much more that's beyond the MAC. And one of my biggest honors also was to be in the neuropath core. This is in the very beginning when Stephanie, Manu, and Clarissa and Bill, right? Look at Bill on the bench. I mean, in 2009 in the MCB, managing the lab. I mean, they welcomed me in a way that I cannot even describe without crying. This is our first brain box. I think we are on the version 3 right now. But you can imagine how nervous I got here. So I started in October 2009. And then 2 weeks in my employment here, I discovered that I was pregnant. So, you know, I was coming from another place to a place where no one knew me. My English was much worse than now. And then imagine I will get there and say, you know, you did all this effort to bring me, and by the way, I'm pregnant. I was freaking out. But as everything in the MAC, this was taking like super welcoming. This is the baby shower in 2010. And at that time, I realized that I could be an influencer here in the MAC, because this was 2010 when Adam was born. And in 2012, we already have 5 babies in the neuropath core. So this is to really influence people. Anyway, this is us more recently here. I mean, our latest neuropath reporting meeting, which is full of people, is one of the joys that I have during the month. And of course, getting all the trainees that come to see brain cutting from the MEC, GBHI, from outside. And the neuropath is a fun place. This is me. This is a bunny suit, right? But this is a bunny ear that Lily did a plank on April 1st. So, you know, this is our day by day there. We have a lot of fun being together, which is great. So, you know, it came from a point that when I decided to do pathology, people were very sorry for me because they felt, you know, it was not fun, it was behind, it was outdated to a point. I mean, and these are just some of the papers we did in the neuropath core that I think is exciting to be in neuropathology. If you are not a neuropathologist, people come and be with us. We participate in different studies and studies that really make a difference for the clinical folks. Of course, BHI is my other big honor here, and thank you, Victor and Bruce, for including me. I cannot even speak how important I think a program like this is, especially coming from the Global South and being able to really give a little bit of contribution. I mean, it's nothing compared to what you do and, you know, our amazing staff to really advance equity for brain health throughout the world and, you know, continue it. So not saying farewell for this for sure. But of course, you know, all the environment of the MEC, this is the day we got our endowed chair, which was probably a week before the pandemic started. And again, thank you, Bruce, for, you know, all the support that you bring to all of us. It's not only me, you see, we were 6 there, and this is just part of the kind of support the MEC brings. You know, of course, I already talked about Bill a lot. We went to the Tau Consortium last year. We had a party that we needed this hat. So we were very embarrassed together at the airport. Everybody was looking at us because this is not Texas, this is California. Of course, Gil, you know, a great partner, have been doing so many things together, but you know, the MEC is not, I could not put all the pictures there. And this is what I was saying. Well, I will, of course, not represent people I want to represent, and I will apologize for this. But one thing I would like to reinforce is that, of course, we have the faculty here, we have the students, but, you know, without the staff members, there is nothing we could do in the MEC. And this is, you know, these are people who are even more engaged in the mission that we are. And this is very rare to see. You know, I have here Caroline and Joe and Rose and Fonda, of course, Rosalie, we miss her very much, Anil, Leslie, Eleanor, I mean, and there were others also, but I just wanted to say a big thank you. You saved my life many times. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and you give, at least for me, and I know for everybody, a lot of, you know, motivation to continue doing when we have all the rejections that we have, when it's not a good day. I mean, looking at all of you really keep us going. It's an amazing thing. So, you know, my takeaways from this time in the MEC, I mean, science and impact really depend on community. If you are in a bad community, you are doomed. If you are in the MEC, will not be better. You know, sometimes it's good to embrace some things that come and we don't even know why. Here I could take risk. I mean, it's very easy to say take risk, but if you take risk in a place there is no safety net, you know, it doesn't work. I mean, again, in 2015 and 16, when I really had problems with funding and I went into a big debt with the department, I remember going to Joe Kramer to a meeting with the department, and they told me you have to fire everybody. And I said, can I have 2 more months? And they looked at me and they said, no. And Joe said, we'll pay if she doesn't pay. And, you know, thank you. I mean, and luckily it took 5 years, but I paid. But it took 5 years. Of course, persist through failures. We are all get a lot of failures here, but also we get a lot of success. And even the small contributions matter. Now, of course, this is just kudos to all my mentors that have been, you know, with me all this time until today, through all over the years. This is a giraffe. Do you remember, Bruce, we saw in Kenya? It was our favorite giraffe from the giraffes there. We also saw the elephants. And of course, my family, my kids who have been accompanying me a lot, even through the lab, my parents, my sister, and, you know, without that, my husband, Oded, I mean, Oded is like the person who said, okay, I need to write a grant. So I will disappear with the kids for 2-3 days. and you can really concentrate and over, and without this support, I would have done nothing also. And what is next for me? So this is a map that Jennifer Yokoyama did a few years ago. Maybe you remember. It was inspiring Game of Thrones, and she put me here in the Grinbergs. I turned it so I can be in the West. And I want to say that if you know Game of Thrones, you know that everything that inside the wall is relatively okay. And she did at that time, because she was really foreseeing the future, maybe, that Mayo Clinic, it is inside the wall. So, I swear this was there. I didn't put it here. It was in the original map. So I won't be going too far away. I'm going to inside the wall, working with Dennis Dixon and Melissa Murray, modernizing the brain bank at the Mayo clinics. I mean, we have been working with Mayo a lot throughout these years, and I think I hope this will make a bridge that is even stronger. We have very similar interests, and of course, my passion for the MAC. It's very important here. So I'm sure this is not really a farewell. And I would like to, and of course, this was my beginning, thinking on the brain, and thinking that I would like to do it, even if I would be in the morgue. But throughout these years, I had a lot of imposter syndrome, but it really changed only recently. And the reason for this is because we are doing this study. This is on a typical Alzheimer disease that we are doing single nuclear RNA-seq. This is led by Felipe. We have 1.6 million nuclei. And what Felipe learned is that the cell that's more vulnerable for Alzheimer's disease, we knew it was the RORB. We have published this before. But there are different types of RORB. And the RORB that's really important is the RORB green one. I didn't give this name. This was a real name that was there. So I know now that maybe I cut for doing some of this research. All right, so thank you very much. This is my new email. And I will see you around, but I hope to hear from you all the time also. And thank you very much for everything. I mean, I could not think or express how lucky I have been to be here accepted in the MAC and to have the opportunity to interact with you all these years. Thank you very much. Thank you. What